Good afternoon and welcome to the Glens City Water and Sewer Board meeting. It's Monday, November 4th and a little after 2 p.m. First agenda item is to open up the meeting to public participation. Anybody from the public would like to address the council? Not seeing anybody else, we'll turn it over to Chris Round from LaBella. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having us, Mayor, board members. I'm here to talk to you about, if you recall, a little over a year ago, the city completed and adopted a drinking water source protection plan. And you guys were part of that. We presented to you. And earlier this year, the state, DOH and DEC made available funds to assist communities in implementation activities. So there was a series of recommendations. I apologize, my printer wouldn't give me everything I wanted before I left. But in the plan, there's a series of implementation activities, and we're going to talk about one of those. But first, I want to introduce representatives from Department of Health. I'll let you guys, because I'm not going to say your last name correctly, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
That's fair, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Madeline Selekia, so it is a hard last name to say. I am with the Drinking Water Source Protection Plan out of the Department of Health, the capital region, so right out of Albany. And we are technical assistance providers as well.
Fantastic.
And all of you
Welcome.
listen.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Alyssa Clement. I'm also a technical assistance provider. I work with Madeline in the capital region.
Welcome. Welcome.
So I mentioned the state provided like a pool of hours for us to assist with implementation activities. I met with Bill, the mayor, and Bill Norton earlier this year in May, and we talked about those activities, and then we also we prepared a draft of one of like what we think is one of the foundational pieces of the plan and the program, and we'll talk to you about that. But DOH in the future, how are you going to talk about how you guys want to interact with the city or this enterprise?
Yeah, so I can speak a little bit to that. So the DEC Department of Health partnership luckily did provide this shorter term 6-month consultant availability. At this point, or starting to this point, we as DOH will start to absorb kind of the role. We do take a little bit more of a hands-off approach that you have seen from this program in the past. We are going to be here as a resource to maintain and to help with the implementation going forward. Use us as a resource for questions about the plan, about implementation, about making connections, bridging gaps, looking for more resources. That is really where our strong suit in this helping process is going to look like. Alyssa and I are going to be the capital region DOH folk that you guys work with. So for us, we will do check-ins a little bit more frequent earlier on, and then farther in between as we go along. Our goal is to make this plan sustainable for the community to be able to handle it with as least support as possible. So in case there's turnover on our end, you don't have to worry about what that is going to look like for this plan. And we're very excited to work with all of you going forward. So is there any questions about that? I know I gave a little bit of maybe of a more vague overview.
We can keep working. So what we did is we sat down and there's 10 or 12 like implementation activities as far as watershed protection. The city's in a fortunate position where you don't have a lot of like imminent threat to water quality. You don't have a leaking tank, or you don't have a groundwater source that's subject to other source contaminants. In the case of the watershed, one of the things that came up was illegal use, vandalism, littering, uncontrolled activities, and one of the things we suggested to address that is perhaps to employ a watershed steward or watershed inspector. The city does inspections periodically with its existing staff. The idea is that, hey, can we make this a seasonal part-time position? Perhaps the city would contract with, I asked Jim if he could be here, but the Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District, they perform this kind of inspection activity for other communities. For the town of Lake and village of Lake George, as an example, they do some work And the idea also is the watershed steward, and I'll pass around this job description, is kind of, would have serve multiple purposes. Some of the other recommendations that were contained in the plan included doing inspections for harmful algal blooms, being proactive about invasive species, doing public education on the lower watershed as an example. There's illegal dumping activities, lawn materials. There's also, use of phosphorus-based fertilizers. There's probably a higher prevalence of trespass or illegal activities on that. And so I think one of the things that came up is people don't even know that the watershed is the primary drinking source for the city and needs to be protected in it. And so that person could act as developing a public education program. So if we did a mailing to citizens at Queensbury that are adjacent to the lands, they could do that. They could also, as inspecting, they could also intervene. Not that they're going to take on police powers per se, but when you engage somebody who's trespassing or educating them, it's creating awareness. And big picture, and I know we brought this up, is that long term, is it possible, would the city be interested in developing a plan that would allow for compatible use, we use that term, of the watershed activities? That's not to say the entire watershed, but perhaps portions of it. You're doing that now with the Halfway Brook, the lower watershed, by promoting the use of a trail. I think the mayor was out there. I don't know if you've shared that with the schools.
Sure. Well, both school districts are willing and able to help us educate their students and have their athlete leaders join it. So that was great to hear, and they'd be willing to do that. We also do have a plan that was created by with the city of Glens Falls and the town of Queensbury to increase that walking trail down along our lower watershed. That there was grant money available from Senator Betty Little that Queensbury would like us to implement. We would not be real comfortable doing that unless we, there's a train of thought that by bringing more people in to an official recreation space, that we could stop the illegal use of the space, right? We know that there are cyclists that are using the mountain bikers that are using our lower watershed in a way that we are not okay with, but that by bringing them in and creating a path that we would be okay with, and increasing the we have just the Halfway Brook Trail that cuts across the property, but there's a design of taking that walking path and going down along our trail and connecting to the other trails in the area that would increase its use, and that those people would actually decrease the amount of dumping and illegal use of the property. So those thoughts are there. It's just a matter of developing them in a way that protects the watershed, and it is something we've been talking about throughout this process, and because it's counterintuitive. How do you stop people from illegally using and trespassing on your watershed? To make legal use and identify legal use as a way to stop the illegal use is foreign to this Water and Sewer Commission, right? It's not something we've thought about prior to my administration, right?
There's multiple copies of this draft job description. If you take one, pass it around.
Yeah, I have some as well. I'm just gonna
Oh,
pass
you do,
this way,
terrific.
and then also
Because I
this
probably
one.
don't have
On the
it.
same lines, Chris, when we were walking this proposed biking trail, toward the reservoir, toward Halfway Brook Reservoir, Superintendent Gannon said that he was very impressed with the whole thing. One of his thoughts was that maybe for the testing portion of it, he could set up as part of this high school biology course to come down and do water sampling down there at the brook.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. So we had hoped to bring DEC here today. Unfortunately, we had a scheduling conflict. We're going to introduce this idea of one of the roles that the steward could do was to improve our knowledge of water quality, and do more sampling. I know you do some limited sampling. And the DEC with the National Federation, NFOLA, National Federation of Lake Associations, has a program that's called CSLAP, and it's a citizen scientist sampling. Glen Lake, as an example, has been doing, citizen scientists have been sampling Glen Lake since the start of the program, I think since 1986, 87.
Okay.
And they sample, the citizen scientists sample, and then they send certain of the things are what we call field parameters. There's a thing called a Secchi disc, which is like how deep into the lake can we see, to measure clarity, temperature, etc. But the chemical parameters are then sent to a lab that the state oversees, and it's done at a reduced cost, so it doesn't cost nearly as much. And so we would hope, well, they come here and present on that. They weren't able to. What we did find is they're just now expanding that program to public water supplies. And one of the hitches that we have is that they want volunteers to do that water quality sampling, because the benefit of that is you're improving awareness and educating, lay people, so to speak. And so they're trying to figure that out. And then the other challenge that we brought up is like, hey, there's multiple reservoirs, and how would the program apply? Does it 4 reservoirs, 5, 3? And so there's some stuff to work out. And there's time to do that. And then I know while we introduced this job description, the job description for the watershed steward, and we probably in our conversation we linked it to expanding use of the watershed. They don't necessarily go hand in hand. The city may decide, no, that's not for us, but we see the benefit of a steward, but we don't see the benefit of compatible use. So I don't want you to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. The job description, and we won't be able to do it, but we want to put that in front of you, and to digest it to see if is this resonate with you? Does it include all the activities that might be beneficial to the watershed protection? So we described some certain things there. One of the other things that came up is early detection of erosion activities that could be very harmful. If we don't stabilize slopes or prevent soil from entering water body, it can do further damage. I know Mike White is a big fan of that particular initiative, and he's been around the Halfway Brook watershed identifying locations. It is also, this person could do or supervise analytical testing, could do a more rigorous or frequent monitoring for HABs, harmful algal blooms, and or the potential presence for invasive species. So that was the intent. And rather than try to do these things piecemeal, we said perhaps the first step is to have somebody like this who could work with you and undertake all the other activities. And so that's my pitch to you today.
Thoughts?
And it's budget season. Are you guys wrapped up with your budget? So we did not build into the budget an additional staff person.
That's good.
All right.
I'd rather, anyway. Thoughts, guys?
Yeah.
Well, is this something that Warren County Soil and Water would take a lead on? I mean, they already have talked about maybe putting some access sites into the reservoirs where they could do some testing of the things. I don't know whether this was just.
I can speak to that. We spoke to Jim Liebram, and Jim, was he on a call? Was it Bill, you and I?
Yeah, Jim, they already do a lot of that testing for us already.
Yeah. And he said, this is what we do. We'd be happy to do it. And it's just figuring out, part of the reason to craft a job description is so everybody understands exactly what it is we're asking of that individual.
Yeah.
So. And I think, my 2 cents is I think it's a seasonal, part-time, it's not a new position. It's probably engaging their services for as frequently as you want them on the site. Maybe they're doing it once a week. I don't know how frequently you inspect.
We try to go up to them at least once, probably 2 to 3 times a week, 4 times a week.
Okay.
Maybe not. Maybe we don't get up there as much in the winter. We try to do it at least quickly on the weekends, because that's when we seem to get the most trespassing and other things of that nature. So we make sure we check them, and weather conditions the way they are, you know, our volume is decreasing, so we want to make sure we're evaluating and the water reservoirs we should be pulling from, and maybe backing off on ones that we're using a little more than we should be. So we try to equalize everything to make sure.
How do you make that call, Bill? Are you doing physical observation of water levels and
Physical
say, oh,
yeah,
we're
physical
down, so it's
observation.
not a remote sensing?
No, physical observation. Yeah, and I'll get to this later, but, you know, we had to work on a valve the other day, so we were on halfway booked for 3 days, which isn't normal for us. We usually like to use the upper watershed reservoirs. Quality of the water seems to be just a little bit better, just because the topography of the reservoirs themselves. Halfway Brook seems to be much more organically loaded with plants and aquatic life, so we get a lot of more organic taste and smell complaints about that.
Was Jim open to this suggestion?
Yeah, so he said, hey, they'd be happy to. I mean, that's what sustains them, is providing service to their.
Right, they do a good job.
Yeah, yeah.
They seem to, whatever they do well. So that did seem like the logical spot to
Right.
look. I don't know.
Well, if we did engage contractually with Warren County, we all know that Jim runs a good organization and that they do similar work. So it makes sense that they would be our first step. How to pay for it is clearly
That's
gonna,
what
is definitely gonna be a difficult thing, right? Our water and sewer budget is a challenge. Our wastewater treatment and our water facilities, we did come in under budget last year, and I think we're on budget and a little under budget this year. Most of our debt, though, for the city debt is associated with the wastewater treatment and the water treatment plant, right? It's our biggest concern. I don't want to misspeak, and I do it quite often, so I'll give it my best, right? It's our long-term concerns are our water safety and our wastewater treatment plant facilities, right? We've got an aging infrastructure. We've applied for, only about $40 million worth of grants recently, and it was awful nice Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand to give us about $1 million this year. But it's hard when you go, oh, well, we only got 39 more million to go, right, to address some of these. And those were only our top 5 concerns. So I think that those are clearly our one worry here is how do we pay for this? And we need to try to write as many grants as we can to see. But I also think that in general, when talking about our lower watershed in particular, there is a need to, our putting up posters and signs saying no trespassing is a failed policy. I don't wish to be over dramatic, but us telling the residents, and so this part of this lower watershed is all in the town of Queensbury, and it is a favorite, best unregulated dog park in the town of Queensbury. We did by having a walking trail, our halfway book trail, by formalizing that, I think we have stopped a lot of the dumping. But we've also discovered in the last 2 years that there is a great illegal road bike or a mountain bike trail that is on this watershed. we discovered while we were walking it and looking at it, right? And so,
Somebody spent some time in
well,
it.
oh my God, right? This is amazing. This is horrible. All in the same breath, right? I couldn't believe how well maintained it was, how close it was to our watershed, how well blazoned, so that just you could see it from the trail and not the road, because they didn't want to be discovered. And it is well used. So by exploring the options of this position, we can start to address that, because there is a belief by a local group that is used throughout Queensbury's authorized mountain bike, that they have been able to decrease the amount of trespassing and illegal use by welcoming in these bikers, right? We know that from our Adirondacks in general, that by creating marked hiking trails, that they've been able to stop the people from going out and dumping in the rest of the Adirondacks. So with that same language, this position could help us to explore those options of how to get people to stop using illegally and dumping illegally by formalizing legal use of the area. And certainly this Warren County Soil and Water can help us with those goals. Right? We had them come and do a presentation from not the group that's actually using this, but what is the name of the mountain bike group?
Adirondack Cycling.
Adirondacks mountain biking cycling group, right? So they would also work well with this position if we could do it.
They did a presentation.
Yep.
So if you, as a Water and Sewer Commission, we're wrapping up the initial grant that finishes up, that this recommendation is in. If you agree with the idea of this steward, then we could start to look at, and we could go to Warren County Soil and Water and ask them how much this would charge us, right? It lends itself, because we're already using them for some of our other water testing, so it really works. We know how competent they are. Then we could start to look at how much that would cost us and how to implement such a thing, and then also other clean water grants that are out there, and see how we can make this work without it becoming a long-term financial burden. I know that, the council is very conservative, and we don't want to add to the financial burden, but also this helps us protect our biggest asset, right? And it is by largest, right? The city of Glens Falls is the largest landowner in the town of Queensbury, and it's through our watershed. And certainly we've been concerned about the illegal dumping, the illegal trespassing. This helps address all of that in one fell swoop.
Has Jim seen this?
Yeah, Jim, I'm glad you said that. We shared it with him. He made edits, and so this copy reflects his edits. Yeah.
Did he show any interest in maybe getting involved in it?
Yeah. I asked him along here, but he had other. I didn't ask him soon enough, right? He had a couple other projects going on locally.
And we're developing, just like this, we're developing relationships. Town of Queensbury is very interested in this, in the walking trails, interested in helping us if we wish to ask their help in addressing the bicyclists. They believe that they've helped us address the dumping by helping us with the walking trail that's now there. And there's evidence of that. There's still people going off the trail, but they have limited it. And they use also their trails. And it's funny, the one day last year that I was hiking Queensbury's trails, I ran into Chris going the opposite way with his wife and some other friends, right? So there is evidence that by encouraging good trails, by educating, by policing, that we can do both, right? We can secure our water quality, and we can increase education, right? We know we got the school districts that would be interested. I know the town, John Strow, is very interested in helping us with this if we walk in this direction. He didn't promise funds, but,
I
you
think
know.
that's an ask we can make.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can always ask, right? You know,
I think if you look at the description, think about what would be a reasonable frequency to have somebody on site. We can reach out to Jim and start that conversation about like, well, what would it cost? And it's gonna depend on, well, how much time are you asking us to commit? And then we can look at other funding sources. There's a couple of issues you suggested. Maybe Jim can identify those. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe he's got capacity.
yeah, and I even think that if you agree with this concept as a way to start, that there's how much we ask him, but I think that we enlist a group of volunteers from the area, the bicyclists, the people that are currently walking the trail, to help us with support their initiatives, right? That we don't just ask Jim to spend every day, all day out on these waters. Certainly the testing, certainly the occasional, going in the education. But we use those high school students for both Glens Falls and Queensbury. We use the community members that want to use the recreational.
So the Adirondack, if they've got a program that where they need to.
Absolutely, and that they supplement that group of people, right? I think you would find Queensbury residents that live in the area that would mind helping some of this. And therefore you would maybe not have a huge amount of money that this costs if he's leading a group of people into these efforts, right?
Well, my thought originally, when we first started talking about opening the trails up, was that we end up with some kind of a coalition similar to Coles Woods or some of the other ones, right? They'd actually take care of their own trails. They
Yes.
have a group that goes out and,
I think that Adirondack bicycling, I know a few members of that, and they actually have work days where they go out, clean the trails and stuff. And,
Yeah, they mentioned it, right? And it fits right into this too. If you had a guy, especially if you got a guy, like I felt when they were making their suggestions, that I didn't know if they were good suggestions. But if you took those suggestions to a guy like Jim, he could tell us, right? And I know that's Mike White's concern, is that there is already erosion, and you don't want to make it worse.
Right.
But again, a guy like Jim, and engaging the Adirondack bike group with Jim, and
they were going to fund that whole thing themselves. It wasn't going to cost the city anything to have them. Steve was going to design the trails, and he certainly knows what he's doing. He's done enough of them over the years.
and again,
One
if
in
they,
January right
if
now.
they can help us with that, and then we go, okay, what kind of, can somebody pick a different day of the week to go through and make sure, right? I think we could do all these things with one swoop, but what I'm most comfortable with is Jim, the Water and County Soil and Water, being through a limited contract to help us with this, right? Because I know I wouldn't know a good trail practice from a bad trail practice. Peter, did you have a question?
Yeah, the use the trail as the lower watershed, not the other lower
No.
ones. So not much help if just the lower watershed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, half of the trail's already in there anyway.
It is, and that's
Good
why,
job.
again, I think that everybody's kind of going, well, but again, we've got this fear that if we open it up and we don't have a plan or a way to do it, that we could make it worse, right? And I don't think anybody wants that. So again, does everybody like the idea that we try to work with Warren County Soil and Water to fulfill a contract it's within this outline?
I do. I think I'm going to be a thorn in the side of the process, though, because I've been saying for many years that I don't think that echoing what you said, the signs, the postage, the please don'ts doesn't work. There needs to be somebody on our watershed policing it, and was told couldn't afford it. We're not in jurisdiction, so we can't send our cops up there. Like whatever, it's just a number of things.
Yeah.
I it's just crazy to me to do anything without that person in place. And yes, the soil and water would be great. It feels a little bit like it has potential to be a 75% effort as far as coverage and the thoroughness with which it can be policed and it can be dealt with. But you know, perfect can't be the enemy of the good. But I very much think that if we do anything up there, bike clubs, anybody, there's got to be somebody that's watching it,
Overseeing it.
There just has to be, and it's always been like, and I understand that, but I just, if we're gonna open this stuff up, somebody's got to be a point person, and they've got to be like, that's their gig, and the soil and water sounds like a great way to get it started.
But it's not the end.
My gut tells me that's not going to be it's not going to be enough in the long haul.
Yeah.
Which can be fine. We still get started, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess I'll be the curmudgeon that sits here and
No.
that's not enough more. You know,
Right, yeah.
So
No,
But
I think everybody
but
feels
that's
that
one
way.
way where the bikers come in. There are more
Sure.
people watching the trails and stuff. The more people you have out there, the
Yeah.
less people are going to be dumping, and you know.
And if that's successful, and this minimal contract works, then great. And if it's not, then I think that you and the rest of the board needs to speak up and say it's not enough, right? We need a full-time forest cop or
I don't
whatever
think
you
one
want to call
person- I
it.
don't think one person could cover that. I mean,
Me neither, right?
it's such a big
yeah,
area. I mean,
yeah.
where are you going to be?
I totally agree with you, and like that to me is like, then we talk about a part-time one person. Like,
Yeah.
it's even more fantastical. Like, how
Yeah.
are they gonna fly? Like,
Right, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I remember mentioned this with Mayor Diamond, and it was just like, what do you think? There's just like government employees falling off of trees for free? Like, we can't do this stuff. And at the time, you know, it was during the recession, or like, I get it. You know, it was reality.
Yeah,
But it's just, yes, this has to happen as far as I'm concerned, and it should not be done lightly as far as its, you know, intensity. But
fair enough. And who knows, maybe we can get some funding to help us
Yeah.
with it, right? I mean, maintaining,
Plus, this is a place to start anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's written in stone that this has to be the way. Yeah, we can, if we get this, we can always expand it.
yeah.
Or do away with it. It doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You know,
It's a beauty of contracting for services. You're not
Yes.
obligated to.
Exactly, yeah.
well, and I think that if we can do that, we will get a heck of a lot less resistance from our fiduciaries, which is the Common Council, right? I think that this is a great start, and I think your point is it's a little to start with, and it's not. We don't think it'd be enough. But
Yeah, we'd
it's a
all love to
start.
hire a full-time person to go up there or two to go up there and run, you know, here's an ATV, go check the trails and arrest anybody you see in here.
Yeah,
Well,
But it is
Yeah.
important to get started.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. It's I like
just-
your idea that good is not the enemy of the best.
Yeah, so as long as this is open-eyed and towards a futuristic goal of getting this stuff nailed down in total, then this is a great way to start. I hope this isn't like, here's a thing, technically checkbox,
Good luck.
bye.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and not any one here, but
No.
you know, I mean, things get lost in the system over time, and
Good point.
it just exists until they don't, and then no one remembers why something wasn't there, or they didn't even know it was there in the first place. And
Yeah.
so it'd be too bad, I think. So this is great. I just hope it becomes, you know, this to me, like, how many people turn on their faucet every day and don't even think about it? They don't care. They don't have to care because it's just good. And that to me seems the same as having, you know, Tom at DPW. There's a hole in the road, call Tom. He gets some guys out there to fix it. And it's just, you don't think about it. You're not going to get swallowed up by a hole in the middle of Glens Street because we got a department for that, right? So, like, the same thing for, like, water is just, like, it's got to happen, right?
Mm.
So, I don't know. I'm repeating you and myself. So, I'm a fan of it, but I'm very staunchly behind it having some teeth and going hard.
I'd like to reiterate as well. I feel like that is also Madeline and I's role to make sure that when we do check back in, to really check in on this watershed stewardship position and see if that relationship with Warren County Soil and Water is a good fit or not, and just kind of making sure that those, it's getting checked in on and it's not just getting put on the shelf or, a checkbox.
And to that point, any suggestions that you guys have with respect to whether it's DEC or Warren County Sheriff, observation, at least in my opinion, as the attorney for the board, observation and reporting is not always the big issue. It's enforcement, right? So even with this steward individual, this person doesn't have any law enforcement background. So you've got to be very careful as a municipality or anybody as an individual, whether it's a volunteer or somebody in this position, confronting somebody that's dumping, right? Or confronting somebody that's hunting. So you take their name, you take their license plate number. If that doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't solve a lot of the city's problem. And to Chris's point, it's enforcement, right? So the problem that the city has had for all these years is we own property in another municipality, and we can't seem to get law enforcement up there to assist to a greater degree to enforce and to help solve the problems that we're seeing. So whether it's a steward or it's a volunteer, in my opinion, and to Chris's point, at some point it's got to make the transition that everybody globally, the town of Queensbury, the Warren County Sheriff, DEC, DOH, have all got to come together and say, look, this is a tremendous resource that the city of Glens Falls has here. They're willing to share it. But in order to do that, how do we keep the bad guys out, and how do we keep that enforcement down and continue to make it safe for people? Because, honestly, in this day and age, I wouldn't want my wife or my brother or my son or daughter up there volunteering and trying to enforce something when you don't know what's going to happen. And I don't just mean it from a violence standpoint, I mean it from an accusation standpoint. I mean, we see it all the time in the news. Somebody says, oh, he threatened me. Well, even if you didn't do it, you're in the news, you're in trouble. So that's where law enforcement really has to come in from my perspective to make this viable for any use, is because if you don't have anybody that's got teeth to it, we can kick this can down the road all day long, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to, is somebody going to be held responsible? And I think if we had a few of those examples of people getting popped up there, pinched, I should say, not popped is not a good word, popped isn't getting a ticket, I think word would get around and say, well, there's somebody up there actually enforcing. I got charged, $500 for legal dumping, and make sure the Queensbury Town Court knows, hey, when these people come in and they're charged, you've got your penal law ranges, 0's the low end, 500's the high end. Let's have a collective thing here and let's hit them on the high end. So any suggestions you guys have or can come up with DEC would be great, because that's really where the struggle has been all these years, at least in my opinion.
I just say, I don't think the intent was that this person would be doing enforcement.
No, I know, but I mean,
just,
even
just so that's clear. But I know I know firsthand. I had earlier experience was well, you could have the person's name on an envelope in the garbage, but that doesn't prove it was their garbage.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, what do I got to do
here
to make this happen?
It was us or town of Queensbury where they dump over on Sanford Street. There was nothing they could do with it.
Yep,
Yeah,
they
but
identified.
I think what could happen is that this individual develops a relationship with law enforcement.
Yep.
And they figure out how to work together and be there at the right time.
Exactly.
And be eyes and ears without doing any intervention. Sure. Would be great.
And I think we're much closer to that than we have been in prior administrations.
Yeah.
John wants this from the town of Queensbury, wants this to happen, and the sheriffs, we've got a better relationship between Warren County Sheriffs and the City of Glens Falls Police Department than we've had in my memory. So I believe that those are things that are possible now, where I don't know that they were before. I think that I agree with everything said. It's got to be it's got to be faceted. It's got to all be together, or it's not going to work, right? It's not enough just to hire a person. It's not enough for a person to operate on their own. They have to have a group of people to work with them. We also have to have the bike group come in and help us get a path that makes sense environmentally. Then we also have to have buy-in from those groups and the high schools and the town, and working together. So, and I think we have beginnings of that we just didn't have prior to this, right? I wouldn't have been surprised if 4 years ago you all said, no, sounds nice, but no. John is ready to meet with, we have a group because of that, me and Woody and Bill and I think the three of us and maybe one other sit on a committee that hasn't met in over 3 years about in charge of that thing. John's ready to meet with them anytime we are, right? And so I think now we would have something to meet with them about, right? And bring the bicycle group in. And I mean that money may not even be available from Betty Little anymore. And that includes closing off the old logging trails, right? That in the current thing. So anyway, it's if nobody has any issues with this, I suggest we give it draft approval, and that we talk to Warren County Soil and Water about what kinds of things, what kind of costs this would be. We're not approving any money spent. We're approving to move forward with the concept.
David, have you?
Yeah, I read through it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great start.
Okay.
Does
Any
that,
pitfalls involved in it? I'm sorry, Chris.
no,
No,
does that soil and water person or entity have any teeth at all, even baby ones? Or is that completely nothing? I'm just curious.
No, I mean, they don't have
I don't
any.
think
They
they
don't
have
have any law enforcement
Any
authority.
more than you or I would.
No.
Okay, I just didn't.
But
I don't know where they sit.
to their
That's all I
point
was trying
is,
to
but
know.
they can set up those relationships
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, I'm from Soil and Water." They call a sheriff's department and say, "I got somebody out here
Mhm.
doing something." They might get a better response than just you or I up there saying, "Joe Schmo's over here. Can you come send out a patrol car?"
And they do interact
Yeah.
with people all the time, so
Yep.
they know how to behave, I guess.
And they're in all of our parks now, and our relationship with them has grown significantly as well. They're helping us with some of our gardens. They're helping us with Crandall Park Beautification Committee, and
And they're
they're
testing,
pulling
right?
invasive species now for us. They're testing our water for us, so it's a perfect fit.
Good.
Maybe Soil and Water can work with law enforcement and work out something that was more efficient, I think. Dave's point with enforcement is that there's no enforcement, so maybe you can, Soil and Water can do what we're doing, and said do the law enforcement portion that's available. So, and but now such that I don't know what's something to do with this if you can't get the law enforcement people to
I am to support it.
work with it.
I think
But
we
it
can.
would be great too if having some teeth to stuff, enforcement, like you're saying, going after dumpers and real egregious stuff that we're never going to make come onto our community dumping place, but we will. Like you're talking about with the cyclist. To me, I don't know. My perception of this when I've seen it in other places, that trail area and those kinds of uses of the land turn into church-like places, and anybody doing that, just like you said, helps police a bit. But I don't think you create that unless there's a backstop somewhere. I guess that's the
Consequences?
thing. For something. I mean,
Yeah.
not that we're going to go in there and pop everybody for you're walking past this line and here's your ticket. That guy's got a truck backed up and a bunch of stuff that's half in it and half on the ground.
Yeah.
That's different. And having people realize that, respectfully and environmentally, you can enjoy this and help preserve it, but know that, why am I caring about treating this place well when that guy just got rid of all of his yard waste from the last 3 years? And there's never been a consequence for that, it seems. It's never connected. So the teeth thing, and to me, that's,
It's gotta be part of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
for the things that it's, the major things.
And to be fair, John, when we asked him as part of this, would he enact the water? There's a new law in Queensbury for waterfront property inspecting their
On-site septic.
septic systems. And John said, I'd be happy to do that same for this. Right now, the people outside of our watershed are not subject to that. But he said he'd be willing to make them subject to it by I don't know if he has to recategorize those neighborhoods as waterfront, but he certainly was all for it. He didn't have any problem with it, which should be a huge thing, because when we identified when the plan was done, Chris, I think the biggest environmental hazard we have in this area is that there are private septic systems in our watershed, right? As opposed to an oil refinery, right? And so that would help.
And if Queensbury's on board, I mean, they can pass lots of local laws to help enforce. I mean, when I was in law school, I got a $250 fine for my dog jumping in a reservoir down in Connecticut. The dog was in the water for about 30 seconds. Lady came along, she was patrol, I got a $250 fine. And that was just, and guess what? The dog didn't ever go in the reservoir again. But I didn't know the difference. To me, it was a pond. I didn't see the sign. But my point is,
that would stop our fishing.
But my point is
Right?
the town can pass local laws like that to help with the enforcement.
Didn't we pull somebody off of the ice this
they had an
past
ice
winter?
haunt out
Yeah,
there.
they had an ice shanty out there.
Somebody was
Ice fishing.
somebody's
Three
kayak-
kayaks.
Somebody's
Three
kayaking
kayaking
or
this
something.
year.
Really?
Right?
Kayaks.
So
They left
that
the
we could
kayaks
ask
up to the
we could
uplands,
ask
yeah.
Queensbury for that, and that, I think they're ready for that. I don't think they were prior to my administration. Of course, anyway, I don't want to take credit for anything. I think that John would not say no to that if we asked for him to implement some laws about that, because those are the biggest concerns we have, right? The real long-term concerns are the septic systems and the current fishing and kayaking. I'm sorry, I can't say it without laughing, because it's hysterical that we'd pull an ice fisherman out of the town of Queensbury off of that. Anyway, there we go.
Thanks. I know
all
you guys
right.
have a full agenda. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. If you have comments, I'll get you guys electronic copies of this, and I'll reach out to Jim, and maybe we can do an internal call with him to talk to you. Great.
Sounds good.
Good. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks for coming.
yes, very nice to meet
Thank
you.
you. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. All right, our stormwater moment, Bill. You're on.
I know you've been all
Biggest
waiting
crowd
patiently.
you've had, right?
All right, basically, this is a culmination of everything we talk about, fire retention areas, and basic ways of doing this, whether it's urban areas or rural or in between, pocket parks and green spaces, enhanced neighborhoods, enhancing paved parking lots with more landscaping, also local jobs, permeable paving and painter boxes help reduce flooding. These are just solutions that manage stormwater are a natural way to reduce pollution, bring value to the community, and make it a better place to live. So, another stormwater from EPA, and I have to apologize for any hiccups in the agenda. I had to put it together because Joanne's been out. So if you see me fault with it, it's all my fault.
Any comments, questions about our stormwater moment? Billing issues. Do we have any billing issues?
It's been ongoing for like the last 3 billing cycles. We've had difficulties, as we've had in this last one at the end of September. And this time we had some duplicate bills go out. Went out a little later, so we had calls for not receiving bills. So I said, we just can't continue to do it this way. So we had a conference call with Tyler, who does the meter reading, and StoreTech, who converts it and takes care of all of the software issues, and then with Munis. So it was a very productive meeting. We all sat down for about 45 minutes and talked everything through. People on StoreTech has gotten hold of Tyler Tech, and they've gotten hold of Mary Beth. They've gone into the computer system. They're looking at any glitches they have, and so hopefully before we get to the end of December, whatever issues have been worked out, and we're ready to hit the ground running in January and get the billing. So we're optimistically confident that it's going to hopefully get better.
Yeah, what was it? I wonder what was the problem, but it was going pretty good all along.
The problem was a couple different folds. Was one, Mike Regan retired. He was very
Oh.
he was very effective in getting all of this billing together and stuff. But I don't think it was all that, because I think Mary Beth's very good and knows and heads up on it. What the problem was is a lot of the software changes. We had some software changes for Tyler, but we had a huge software change from Munis. We went from like Munis number level 3 to Munis number 11. So it hadn't been updated in years. So when we did that, a lot of things got squirrely, and then we finally found out that we were trying to run everything through the server in City Hall. So when we were trying to do that with all those bill runs, it was just bogging down the server. So nothing was being accomplished. So, we'd leave that we think there was nothing else, and we were going to come back, work on it again. But after everybody left City Hall, the server stopped, doing everything it needed to do for City Hall, and we come in the next morning and the bills are printing. So we found out there's a bunch of different glitches that we're trying to run through, and that just may be the way for right now we'll have to run them. Is we'll wait till Mary Beth's leaving at 4 o'clock, and then, she'll put it in there. So when City Hall shuts down, the server will take over, and we'll come in the next morning and it'll be all printed. So we're trying to look at different solutions.
Great.
But those are just in case anybody gets asked or anything like that.
Next up is our resolutions. So I believe everybody's got their packets and had a chance to look at them all. The first is we need a resolution to approve the minutes of the October 7th, 2024 meeting. Do we have a motion or questions about the minutes, corrections? How could we have any errors?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second?
All in
Can't do the
favor?
least in front of anyone.
I
Thank
know. Well, your kindness vote.
Yeah, that's great. The next up is approval of the warrant. Anybody have any questions, comments about the warrant? Without that, could I get a motion to approve the warrant?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the Bobcat skid steer loader for field crew. Any questions?
Yes. I got a lot of questions. What, do you have a picture?
Do I have a picture of it? I do not. It's a replacing the one that they have that's very old.
Yeah.
And we repaired it for the last several years. It's to the point where we can't repair it anymore. Everything's like just, it's a machine that breaks up the street, so there's a lot of high impact, and
Yeah.
a lot of the steel is cracked where it's irreparable at this point. So,
Yeah, this package is a lot of customers. They have a standard package, and then they have a Cap Plus package. So everything on the standard package is included in the Cap Plus package. So you're going to get the Cap Plus package too?
it's a advanced machine, so it has the selected joystick controls, high flow hydraulics, the 74-inch server bucket, and the bolt-on edger. The wheel saw is the big one. That's $17,000. Right now, what we do is we hole drill, so we have to pile holes all around, and then we rip up the pavement. And Jeremy asked if there's another way we can do it. So if we do it with a saw cut, we won't be so when you go to lift up that pavement that you've cut out, it lifts up all the surrounding pavement too, and stuff sometimes destroys that. So now we'll be able to actually cut out the square, so we don't damage the rest of the pavement around it.
Yeah, I was wondering if
We actually looked at it for putting on the mini loader, mini excavator, but that didn't work. So and we actually looked at, in order to get this wheel saw, we had to go up one class in the skid steer. So that's some of the basic expenses too.
We expect it to save us time and money.
Absolutely.
How many years you think it will make it?
I think this one will make it at least. Well, the guys know that it's a new piece of equipment, and everything that they've gotten new so far, they've maintained it very well. So I would anticipate this is, a dozen to 15 years. Again, that's, it's out in the field, it's doing some heavy duty work.
I was thinking, with zero experience and intelligence behind this question, because it looked like such a happening machine, is there a $100,000 one that's not going to get slammed apart like the previous? I know this is an upgrade from what we've already got, but are we buying what we need to hit it as hard as we want to hit it?
We actually looked at a more expensive one, and I leave it to the experts, the people that are going to be running the machines.
Sure.
And they said, no, this is the one they want, not
Okay,
the more
great.
expensive one. This one has the solid tires. You can see it's almost a $2,000 increase for the solid tire. It's actually almost a $4,000 increase instead of getting flat tires all the time.
Mhm.
And then the manufacturer recommended you want the track, and that would have been the more expensive one. They said no, they don't want the track one.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve the Bobcat skid steer loader for the field crew?
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Take care of the boys.
There you go. Approval for the Raftellus water volumetric and minimum charge evaluation. Bill?
As you know, Raftellus did a water study for us. Part of that water study was looking at the way we build and our rate structure compared to other communities. And then they looked at, the second part of that was looking at the quarterly charge as opposed to monthly charges. So that's almost completed. Should probably be in your next month's packet, because we had comments going back and forth. The things that they didn't do was looking at the volumetric rate, or whether we want to go to a tiered structure of, if we have commercial property that are using a lot of water, should we be charging them differently than we charge homeowners? If we have, whether commercial, industrial, or any other type of rates. So that would be one aspect. And the reason that, if you can see, that's a large sum of money is because I asked them why so much, because they don't they don't break it down precisely, and we go to enforce it. They said there'd be no way they could justify it legally. I think that's probably what David would agree to. The second part was looking at the minimum charge. I know that's one of the areas that the mayor wanted looked at.
My problem is they're going to results the minimum charge evaluation is summarized. It's summarized. What do you mean that? And then and the letter describing task 1 is included. So why are you doing that there? It doesn't make sense to me to include a one-letter report and summarize. Then where's the value of where's the details?
Well, that's what they're going to look at, to make sure that they have everything within the scope of their study, to make sure that they're documenting this so that if we're challenged legally, they can.
So it is going to include the details, Peter. It's not just the summary, but the summary will be included with it. And if we don't, this edition of this service is, just so you're aware, is because I believe that people don't understand. I didn't understand my water bill, still at times can't explain it. Can't explain that capital charge is separate from the usage charge, and why it has to do with the cost of my house, right? My property value. And then I also can't justify people, so they don't understand the differences. They don't understand the
Typo with that resolution. Okay.
so I think that I've said to Bill, we need to look at all of this in detail so that we can start to say, like, how much would it cost us to bill people monthly, so that they don't feel, I think people think that they're paying $400 every month, even though they only get the bill quarterly, and they go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm paying this much. And there's just all this misinformation around their bill. And so this is helping us to understand all the ways we could do, not just that we are doing it, but how the ways we could be doing this. We could be, Bill told me about, there's places in Connecticut that don't build the same way we do. Can you give an example of that?
Well, there's some places right here in New York too. I mean, in Queensbury they do differently. They carry some of their debt service on the ad valorem tax, on the general taxation.
Yeah.
So that's not included. Anything that has to do with water and sewer is included in the Glens Falls bill. There's nowhere else that those charges are carried. It's not part of your property tax. It's not part of any other fund or anything. It's all within that one bill. Connecticut used to do it the same way. Some used to just do it all under ad valorem, and some used to do it to break it out. A lot of the ones in Connecticut were private water companies that would bill. That weren't just. So it was just based on, what your water usage rate was, and their whatever markup they had for their facilities.
So maybe I got the estimate for water or usage is separate. So then the taxes are going to go up because it's not included in the water usage. The taxes are going up from
City?
the city.
Well, no.
Not here. I mean,
no, what we're saying right now, what I was saying, and why I asked Bill to go to Raftellus for this information, is that I didn't understand my water bill before I became mayor. It confuses me. You get two, it goes out with my taxes, or it doesn't go out with my tax, but it goes out quarterly. People think they're paying way too much. They don't know what the usage is. There's two different bills, one for usage and one based on your property value. I think that's completely misunderstood, and how much it costs you on a monthly basis. It's like the only utility I know of that is billed quarterly, right? It's a utility. You're using water, right, and sewer, and so it's unclear, and that's what this is about, getting a clear understanding of all the ways this is billed and how we could build this differently. Am I saying that correctly?
No, correct. Yeah.
That's the goal of this. As far as the if the property value of your home goes up, that doesn't necessarily make this go up, because we collect a certain amount like we do with the tax levy. So we don't collect, if your property values of your home go up, we don't necessarily collect $1 million more in water usage fees. We adjust that throughout this, so we collect what we need to for it.
Yeah.
Same with the city, right? You're actually property taxes, we dropped when we did our revaluation. We were, our property taxes were $12.50 per thousand valuation 3 years ago. It dropped to $8, but the property values went up so high that if you were one of the people like my house, my property value didn't go up so high because it's not that nice of a house, and so my taxes went down. if you're in a house that was in a nicer neighborhood, or your property taxes may have went up, but the overall tax rate went down $5 across the city. So it depends on where you were. Same would happen here.
And communities that do that, like you said, if the rate is carried in the taxation, and there's a lot of different work or something that needs to be done, and they're getting that
tax rate
increase, it could go up depending on that.
Oh, is that what you were saying? That was your
But
question?
that's not
No,
for us. Okay.
I guess my question was, why is property value property value in there
At all.
anywhere?
That's right.
It's a base, the way that whoever set this program up, that's the way they did it. So if, like the
Just
mayor
for
said,
debt, right?
Yeah. So if your mayor, the way the mayor said, if your house increases, we're still collecting the same amount of money. So that means the rate will decrease a little bit, so it'll equate. So
But still, I mean, your point is well taken. We have two, when you get your water and your sewer bill right now, you get two of them. One based on the amount you use, and we know 60% of the citizens in Glens Falls use less than the minimum rate, so they get a flat fee. And then we know that you'll get another bill that's our debt, right? And we take our debt and we divide that by the value of your property, and we collect our debt that way. Most people have no idea. And your question is why? Nobody remembers why, because that was all decided before any of us were in this room. So we're having an outside company tell us all the ways we could and what it would cost us and how we could look at this differently. That's what this is for.
And you'll see probably, like I said, next month when we finally get the report to you, to the board, is there's some communities that do improvements to certain sections of the town, and sometimes only that section gets charged for that.
So that might be an option that we can look at.
It could be, but
whether-
I think,
Probably
again, the
don't.
mayor said, we're looking at $40 million throughout the whole city. We're not really improving sections. We're improving the city as a whole.
But still, I mean, the object of this and to spend this money, it does seem like this is a lot of money. But if we don't, we're not going to know how we can look at this differently.
Plus, like you say, there's questions out there everywhere.
Oh my goodness, yeah, it's crazy, right? The misunderstanding around this
The
is
more
crazy.
money gets there, the more questions the neighbors ask.
Yeah, it's right. Well, and we certainly, one thought was, how much does it cost us to send these out? How much do we save by sending these quarterly?
Right.
I think one way to make people feel better would just be to divide it by 12 months and send them that bill 12 times a year. I think it would feel better in some ways, but maybe not.
I think you see how much it's going to cost us to do that.
Yeah.
So
It's gonna be
that'll
really
be in the
expensive.
report. So
Yeah,
it doesn't-
so we'll see,
It's not-
right? But we might change the way we send the bills out
I was
too.
gonna say, can't you send them? I get a lot of
I
bills
think
on
we
the
can send them a different way, but right now, everything's on the
Or
table.
if
We
you
need
could
to look
opt
at
into
it all.
that.
That's right. We could at least send a newsletter, right? Educating people about their water bill too.
Yeah, this is what I got because they didn't charge me for one property, but they send a bill from Southern Fall or down Monroe. It's this wide.
That's it.
That's it. Right there, and it's
So everything's probably calculated in that one rate rather than how we calculate usage.
no, they got
Okay.
they got it separated. They got it separated, but it's
Tiny.
a card like that, and then send it out.
Probably paying a postcard rate
Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to a letter rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we pay a company to print that. We can pay a company to mail that, right?
We mail it.
We mail it. It
We
comes
mail.
right out of the postage machine as well. It's almost about 4,000 every quarter.
Yeah. So
I can't-
4,000 a quarter.
I can't keep Adam from going up to see Emily. So.
Yeah, he gets the postage machine is in my office, so I know.
That's great. All right. Very good. So
And just I just want to preface, like I said before, I wanted to make sure if anybody caught my mistakes, because I told you I did this. But
There it is.
Woody threw me
Mistake.
threw me
Ah, look at that.
right under the bus.
I wanted to make sure you think I wrote it. I didn't write that. That
But
was
she was
me.
quick to
Oh,
make it.
yeah, I was quick to point
It
and make
should
it.
be
That wasn't me.
12,830. I put a little zero
Is
there.
it 300 or 830?
The eight's wrong, isn't it?
Which
Yeah, the
one?
eight's wrong.
Which
The
one?
eight shouldn't be
be
there.
in
So it should be
Where are we?
12,300. Okay.
Where are we on the raft?
So
Tell
I'll
us.
make sure I
Under
change it.
under the resolution. It should be 12,300,
Okay.
not 12,300.
12,300.
All right.
Yeah, perfect.
Do we have a motion to approve that Rep. Tellis charge evaluation with the following amendment? Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Aye.
We got two,
Oh,
we got 20,000 or
Yeah.
more.
No. It's broken up to the two tasks. Task one was 12,300, and task two was 7,700 for a total of $20,000.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
with that amendment, we had a first and a second. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next is the approval of DCK service agreement and fee increase. Questions?
Just historically, you know, this has been a real bargain, and it continues to be that. And I'm not privy to the whole thing, but I think they do a nice job. They seem to.
He does an excellent job of keeping track of everything and writing the reports, and has an extremely good relationship with DOH, so.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Under discussion, we have electrical upgrade update.
Continue to move forward. As I said last month, we had the electricians here for roughly 3 days, went through the whole facility, looked at the control stations for all of the equipment, incorporating that in the design, so hopefully by sometime middle to end of next month, December, we should have hopefully probably 90%, or somewhere close to 90%. And then we'll go from there, and then hopefully the first quarter of next year, we should have 100% and probably be ready to bid just to see where we are and look at our financing options.
Okay. Any questions? Next, Webster Avenue update.
Progress continues there. I guess they're doing the curbing. I don't know if anybody's been down there. They've done some of the temporary paving on a lot of the dig repairs they did as far as the laterals and the sewer line. They lined the sewer line from Glen almost all the way up to the pump station. They did find a section that had already been replaced with PVC, so we didn't have to. So we got a little savings there. From the pump station up to Bay, it was all new 12-inch PVC.
Nice.
So that's all done. Like I said, most of the all the lateral lines were put in with all new cleanouts. So that's been taken care of. There is a request from a resident or a citizen that owns a couple parcels there. They're getting ready to. It's the second parcel in from Glen Street. It's the only open parcel there. They're looking at probably selling that. And what they asked to request us to do, because obviously we don't go back and dig up, is to run the water and sewer over to the property line and also put a curb cut in, so we don't have to do that. We agreed to probably do that. We also agreed probably to run a little piece of PVC pipe from the gas main to the curb, because the gas company will not put a service in unless there's an existing house. So rather than have them dig up the whole road or try to bullet it through and maybe hit a utility, we'll put that sleeve in, so they'll just be able to run right through that sleeve.
Nice.
Great.
Where do you put the clean outs outside of the house or inside the house?
Outside. It's usually in the
So
lawn area.
Yeah, okay.
So they'll temporarily pay that for the winter.
Yes, and then they'll come back in the
Snow removal.
spring. Yep, they'll come back in the spring and take care of all the permanent paving and all the
Trees.
landscaping and the trees. Yep, and then It's been we've been a good relationship. They've done a good job.
Would the curb cut be next year or this year?
The curb cut will probably be this year, because they're putting the curbs in now.
Because really that's on the resident. They should be, because that's planning board and common
We
council.
know, we
Yeah.
know,
I was
we
gonna say,
know.
because they really should be applying for that.
We talked to Phil,
Okay.
so, but we thought in this case, rather than, creating another curb cut or digging up the street,
Right, no, 100%, yeah.
and worst comes to
More
worst, there's just a
formality.
little curb cut and there's some pipe with a couple of 2x4s marking where they are, and then they go from there. I think in order for them to build on that piece of property, they got to go for some zoning things, so that I think they're going for the zoning board here. They got some setback issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the curb cut's common council.
I know what lot you're talking about. Nice empty lot. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
as I alluded to earlier, we put a new valve on the upper reservoir, upper watershed properties, upper junction line coming into the treatment plant. We use the upper junction probably 98% of the time, 97% of the time. The other times we use once or twice a month, we'll use the lower watershed, Halfway Brook. And a lot of times when we do that, we blend it, so really nobody can taste anything. So any difference in the water. But this time we were on it for 3 full days, so basically the tanks were full of Halfway Brook water. Nothing wrong with it. And if we were on Halfway Brook all the time, probably no one would notice any change in their water. But because it is different from the upper junction, because it's more organic, as far as all the other criteria, everything's met, well within any kind of DOH limits. Very good water. But we were on it for 3 full days while they did the work. And that's what we had probably a handful of complaints, and then Facebook's good for a lot of things, but when people get on it and misinformation gets out there, there was a lot of, I guess, complaints on Facebook that I didn't see other, than people calling, and then I formed it. It's just aesthetics, it's not quality of the safeness of the water. Obviously, quality has to do with taste and odor and stuff like that. But everything we've probably since last week we haven't got any complaints. So we've been on it for a full week and a half. So on the upper junction, the valve is working very well. The reason we changed the valve is, I guess, over the lifespan of the valve that's in there, every 5 years they're replacing it. So we found this new valve called a shark tooth valve that, because of cavitation, shouldn't wear. So this hopefully will be the last time we have to change it.
Personnel, any personnel issues?
I don't have anything right now.
Executive session, I don't know that we need executive session. Our next meeting dates are Monday the 18th here at the treatment plant, and then Monday, December 2nd at 2 p.m. is our next regular meeting.
I'll be bringing the scheduling for December.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So, second?
All in favor? Thank you.
Absolutely.